Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the virtual public meeting for the Cross County Trail Bridge and Extension Project. It's now 5:55. We're going to wait a few minutes after 6 p.m. to allow for people to enter the meeting, and then we'll get started soon after that, on around 6:03-ish. So if you just be patient, we appreciate it. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mike Bowles from Bowles Smythe Associates. Thank you for joining us at the virtual public meeting for the Cross County Trail Bridge and Extension Project. We'll get started in just a few minutes. We just wanted to give a few minutes for a few additional attendees to join in case they're having any trouble with accessing the Teams meeting. We'll start about 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, it's now 6:03. We'd like to begin the proceedings. Thank you again for joining us for the virtual public meeting for the Cross County Trail Bridge and Extension Project. Before the presentation begins, please note that this meeting is being recorded and your attendance constitutes consent to be recorded. If you prefer not to be included in the recording, you may leave the meeting and watch the recording at a later date. You can still submit comments and questions by emailing me at mcbowles, B-O-L-E-S, @bowlessmythe.com. I'm going to ask Andy, who will be dealing with the questions and answer section a little later, to post that in the Q&A forum to make that available, so you can just copy and paste that. So again, if you choose to not participate in the live recording, you can watch it later and comment at your convenience. That will become part of the formal project record. As we go through the presentation, we ask that you post the questions in the Q&A, and we will then, after the presentation, go through an order of appearance and ask our presenters to respond to the questions as they are received. We do have, in addition to the presenters, a few additional representatives of Montgomery County Planning Commission and the design team, and we'll introduce them as needed in the response section. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bill Hartman. Bill Hartman is the Trails and Open Space Planning Manager for the Montgomery County Planning Commission, and Jack Smythe, the second presenter this evening, is the Design Team Project Manager and Lead Engineer. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bill. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And you saved me from having to introduce myself. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and thanks to all of you for joining us to receive an update on what is a really super exciting project for the county, and a project that will benefit the Plymouth and White Marsh communities for sure in the long run, as well as all Montgomery County residents and people who like to come here and visit us via our trails. So if you could jump to the next slide, please. So I thought it would be smart to start out with some context of this project relative to the overall countywide trail network. What you're looking at here is a map of the proposed and existing trails within Montgomery County. Just to orient everybody, at the bottom of the map is the Schuylkill River Trail, which obviously runs along the Schuylkill River. And on the right-hand side of the map, highlighted in blue, is the Cross County Trail, which is what we're talking about this evening. Some of you might be familiar with the Perkiomen Trail, which is in the western part of the county that connects into the Schuylkill River Trail down near Valley Forge National Park, and then it heads up to Green Lane Park in the northwestern part of the county. So those are sort of the major spines of trails within Montgomery County. So just a couple of things about the Cross County Trail in general, that area that's highlighted in blue. So this is a trail that is partially built and partially unbuilt. It's about 20 miles in length from where it connects to the Schuylkill River Trail down in Conshohocken to where it goes north and east to where it ultimately connects into the Pennypack Trail in Bryn Athyn, up in the top right-hand corner of this slide. About 11 miles of the Cross County Trail are currently built, so we have 9 or 10 miles to go. And the good news is that all of the remaining portions that have yet to be built are either in active engineering or approaching construction. So that's really important because that means that with the sections that are already constructed, we're in the process of designing and then ultimately constructing the remaining portion, which means that this full 20-mile portion of the cross-county trail will be built in the coming years. Next slide, please. So zooming into the subject of the trail tonight. So this is the section that we call the Cross-County Trail Bridge and Extension. It's about 1.8 miles in length. It runs starting on the left-hand side of the screen where that star is, from where the Cross-County Trail currently terminates at Germantown Pike, and then it runs east and north. And Jack is going to get into the details of what that alignment looks like. I'm just giving you the broad overview here. It runs north and east to where it will ultimately connect to and cross over Joshua Road. And that's the point at which it will tie into the trail that will be running through Erdenheim Farm and the area that the White Marsh Foundation also owns to the east of where that right-hand star is located. So this is a really important section. And that section that I just described in the Erdenheim Farm area is projected to go into construction sometime early next year, and we hope to bid that later this year. And as most of you probably know, this section that we're talking about this evening runs through Plymouth and White Marsh Townships, mostly White Marsh Township, but the section with the bridge over Germantown Pike up to where you get to Butler Pike is located in Plymouth. Next slide, please. So as far as the project teams go, as Mike described, this is a project of Montgomery County and specifically the Montgomery County Planning Commission. I'm the manager of all trail development projects in Montgomery County on behalf of the county. And I'm also joined by Ellen Miramontes and Doug Mazie in the management of this particular project. Because we are using federal funds to fund the engineering and ultimately the construction of this trail segment, we have a gentleman by the name of Joe Natal, who is an engineer and works for the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, and he's our liaison with PennDOT, and he's our PennDOT consultant project manager because we have to coordinate a lot with PennDOT because of the federal funding. And as Mike mentioned at the front end of the meeting, Bowles Smythe Associates, where Mike and Jack both work, and our principals, are our primary design engineering consultant. Next slide, please. Now, in projects that are as complex as this one, it's not one firm that handles all the work because there are many dimensions to a trail project. So, as I just said, Bowles Smythe is the lead engineering consultant, but there are a number of sub-consultants that provide specialized services for the project and for Bowles Smythe in their overall engineering of the project. We have structural engineers, we have geotechnical engineers and surveyors, we have environmental scientists who perform environmental studies, and we also have cultural resource specialists at other firms that specialize in those types of services. And collectively, all of these consultants provide all of the information and studies and data that we need to move through the engineering process and the compliance process with the federal regulations that cover this type of project. Next slide, please. In terms of funding for this project, it comes from a couple of different sources. I did mention just a minute ago that this is largely federally funded. So in 2022, President Biden signed the Consolidated Appropriations Act, and as a result, the county received $2.5 million of what's known as community project funding, grant money, to fund primarily the engineering for this project. And so we're currently using that money to pay for the engineering. But we also received over $20 million that will pay for construction of this project. And that comes from what's known as CMAQ money, which is Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Funding. There is no match for that by the county. So when you look at collectively how this project is being funded, we have in total just under $24 million of funding. The county is providing $625,000 toward this project as a match for that $2.5 million that we received from the Consolidated Appropriations Act. But the remaining portion, which is about $22,850,000, is entirely federally funded. So when you look at it from a percentage standpoint, about 2.7, the county is responsible for funding about 2.7% of the overall project cost for engineering and building this project. So an enormous amount of leverage is being achieved by the county with these federal funds. Next slide, please. Prior to arriving where we are today, a lot of work has gone into this project. There were 3 prior feasibility studies that were performed in 2015. Some trail alignments for this area were investigated in 2022. We did a feasibility study that was done by Gilmore and Associates that focused solely on the bridge and what that would involve. And then in 2024, we published another feasibility study that identified the preferred alignment for this trail, which is what Bull-Smythe is using to begin the engineering process and was used as the inspiration for where the trail should ultimately be aligned. Next slide, please. Oh, there you go. So there's been a, oops,
Sorry.
thanks. That's okay. There's been a lot of public outreach for this project and a lot of coordination already with the municipalities involved as well as PennDOT. I'm not going to read off all the dates here, but we've had a number of meetings with both Plymouth and White Marsh Townships. We've had coordination meetings with PennDOT. We've had meetings with various stakeholders. These are the businesses and some of the residents that are situated along the designated alignment for the trail. And we had an elected officials virtual meeting last week as well. So public outreach is super important to the county, and it's especially important for this project. And so that's why your input is so important and why we're so thankful to have you here tonight. And we look forward to your questions. And as Mike said, please feel free, even after this meeting, to provide your thoughts about the project via email to Mike or to me. Next slide. And I think this is where I'm going to throw it over to Jack, and he's going to get into the details of the project itself. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill, and good evening, everyone. As Bill mentioned, my name's Jack Smythe from Bull-Smythe Associates. We have various team members on the call here to get questions and answer any questions you may have. We also have Colin Drager from SAI. He is the structural engineer for this. So if it's a general structure question, I'm in good shape. But if it gets a little more detailed, I'm going to turn it over to Colin and he can answer those more nitty-gritty structure questions. Just reorienting and going back to the overall slide here. As Bill mentioned, starting in Plymouth to the west at Chemical and Germantown Pike, the trail will run over Germantown Pike and Plymouth Creek, out to Butler Pike, through some wooded areas out to Flowertown Road, follow along Flowertown Road, and at one point at Colonial Drive, actually cross over from one side of the road to the other that we'll get into, and out to Joshua Road. And then we'll head north up Joshua Road to tie into the adjacent section of trail at Erdenheim Farms. So focusing on the Plymouth end, in blue is the existing trail that's shown to the left of this sheet. And that is what we're connecting into. From that connection, we have shown in green the proposed trail alignment. So right off the bat, we are coming off of the existing trail at a 5% upgrade to get up and over Germantown Pike and also Plymouth Creek. Why is 5% vertical slope important? It's important because that meets ADA requirements. So we really held that 5%, which means the bridge is longer because we're not going up as steeply. Right in the area to the west of Germantown Pike, we have a parking lot that is off Germantown Pike in the Brandywine Realty Trust property area that also services the Livesey store. There is an access easement for the Livesey store in this parking lot that we are in the process of evaluating from the standpoint of how to reconfigure a parking lot that works with the structure. So that's an important piece of what we're doing. As such, there is shown in cyan here a little bit of a different alignment, but the green is what is really preferred at this point. And so what this would entail is an abutment at either end. The structure itself is about 600 and some feet long, and it's outlined in this magenta color. So the limits of the structure are shown in the magenta area. In between the abutments on either side are piers that will be located so that we can break up the length of the spans going from the abutment to each pier as we get across Germantown Pike and over Plymouth Creek. The vertical clearance over Germantown Pike is a very defining factor in all of this. We need to make sure that from the road surface to the bottom of the bridge, there is 17.5 feet of vertical clearance. From there, you'll have your beams and your bridge deck. So when all is told, you'll be up more than 20 feet above the road. And that is what is really defining your vertical profile as you go up and over Germantown Pike. When you go over Plymouth Creek, one of the main elements that came out of the PennDOT coordination effort when the feasibility study was going on is that, as you can see in, there's the concrete culvert here for the Plymouth Creek. PennDOT is requiring that the bridge not go over that concrete area for future maintenance reasons. If they needed to replace or repair the culvert, they wanted to make sure that they had clear area to do so. One of the other elements of this structure are the amount of utilities that are out there. So now that we're into preliminary engineering on this project, we're dealing on multiple fronts with different things. And we always look at these things at each of our meetings. The design components, the things that Colin is addressing, the utility components, the right-of-way components, environmental components, cost, trail user experience. So each one of these has a role to play and has a critical meaning on how the bridge is aligned and where the abutments and the piers are placed. So with utilities, we're coordinating with transmission gas lines, pico gas lines, to a lesser extent, water lines, overhead electric lines. So there's quite a bit of activity happening from a utility perspective in this area, and that is a big consideration on how the piers have been placed. From a right-of-way perspective, there's been a lot of great coordination work that was done through the feasibility study, especially in this area with Brandywine Realty Trust, with Victory Park, with the Business Meeting House Business Center, with Danella. So we're going to carry forward that coordination, both from a design perspective, but also a right-of-way perspective. Something to note about the right-of-way process is that this is a PennDOT process project. Why do I mention that? Because it's a very formal process, meaning that we wouldn't be able to talk about acquisition or negotiations of right-of-way until we reach a certain point, and that's going to be towards the end of preliminary engineering and as we get into final design. From an environmental perspective, we have a floodplain, wooded area that we're going through. We also have what is called 106 resource considerations. That would be above ground and or below ground historic type resources that need to be evaluated from the standpoint of how is, in this case, the trail and the trail structure affecting a resource. For instance, there are the lime kilns in this area, as you know. This is a historic district area through here. So and we have a firm, CHRS, that is on the team to evaluate the effects of our project on these different 106 resources. So very important. As we come through the business center, we're in private land through here, and this alignment hasn't changed from the feasibility study. It's intended to basically go along the outside of the roadway network through here and make your way out to Butler Pike. In regards to access, as you may know, access into the Meeting House Business Center, if you're coming from Chemical Road, this is a one-way entry until you reach a certain point in the parking lot area, and then it becomes two-way. We are proposing to narrow this widened area here to push the curb in. What does that do? That allows us to get some sidewalk connections to the trail itself. Right now, as you know, there's limited sidewalk capability in this area. So we are looking to extend the existing sidewalk along Germantown Pike to then allow for you to come up the driveway and get onto the trail in that manner. And we're also looking at getting an ADA ramp and crosswalk capability to allow for that as well. So local connections to the regional trail are very important and are a big part of this project as well. As we get out to Butler Pike, we don't cross the road yet. There have been different options on how to get from one side of Butler Pike to the other. We did select going along the west side of Butler Pike in what is called a side path condition. So therefore, the trail is off the road. It has a 5-foot buffer or more between the road and the trail, the start of the trail. And then the trail itself would be 10 to 12 feet wide. So this whole stretch through here, depending upon your tight constraints of where you are intended to be somewhere in a trail width range of 10 feet to 12 feet and asphalt. Driveway crossings would turn into a concrete ADA ramp that would be as wide as the trail, so we would never narrow the trail as we cross a driveway or cross a side street. But then we would come to the Haub property that is now owned by White Marsh Township. And that's where we are crossing with what's called a rapid flashing beacon, which is a mid-block crossing. For this one, it would have a mast arm like a traffic signal overhead. It would have detection equipment that you could push that would start the flashing beacon to inform drivers that they should allow the trail user to cross over Butler Pike. This area was also selected not just because of the Haub property component, but because of sight distance reasons. We wanted to make sure that there's good sight distance in both directions. And the closer you get towards Germantown Pike, your sight distance, as you know, with Butler Pike gets a little tricky. This is a much better sight distance area. What is also shown here in the cyan color is a trailhead for parking. So it would be a county trailhead for the for trail users to park and get onto the trail itself with a little sidewalk. So that is also being incorporated into the project. This is an overhead drone shot showing the approximate location of where the trail bridge would cross. It would come through the drive or through the parking lot area in here on the Brandywine Realty Trust property. It would go over with a 17.5-foot vertical clearance. There would be a pier on either side of Germantown Pike to span Germantown Pike. There is an area of grass here between the Victory Office Park driveway and Plymouth Creek, where we have another pier located, and that's where you make the turn to go over Plymouth Creek itself and then continue on and meet up with the driveway system for the business center area. This is the culvert, the concrete culvert area that we are avoiding in regards to the structure not going over that concrete culvert. So the look of the bridge, the type of the bridge is what we are focusing on right now, most specifically the type of the bridge. That's where Colin comes in and what we wanted to show you here this evening. This is the Chester Valley Trail that was, I say recently, but in the 2019 timeframe installed over Henderson Road in Upper Marion, right by the turnpike here. So during a weekend detour, this is a truss bridge that was brought in two pieces, put together on the road during a weekend detour, and then pick and placed by a crane on the abutments that had been previously installed. For our bridge, we'll have piers on either side, and the bridge will continue as we come off of Germantown Pike and continue. But this gives an example of one option. This is a truss type of bridge. You can also do other types with steel beams, have a curved steel beam as you're crossing Germantown Pike and the creek itself. So again, there are different options, and we wanted to just show you that at this point, what we're very focused on is what type of structure will be selected. This is another view from the road, basically saying that there are different aesthetic treatments that can be done to the bridge, and that will be part of the moving forward after you get the type, the size, and the location of the bridge set. Then you can get into different foundation types and different foundation designs. And as you're doing that, you can also be looking at different aesthetics for things like the protective fence, railings on the structure, form liners for the piers and or abutments, different things of that nature to set the look of the bridge. At this point, we aren't there yet, so I wanted to just make sure we're clear that the look of the bridge has not been determined yet. So at this point, we've now crossed Butler Pike and we're into what is more of a dedicated trail area through the woods. This area in here is actually a sanitary sewer easement that is clear of trees that we're making use of. So we're coming out of the Hall property and we're getting into the White Marsh area where the residential neighborhoods of Woodbine Way and Wildflower Drive are located. Here we also have two local connections from Woodbine or Friends Lane that would connect to the trail at these two locations. As we come out of the sanitary sewer easement, This is a drainage basin that we're coming down the side of to get down and make the turn along the former railroad right-of-way area. This will then take us out to Flowertown Road. One of the important things to note in this area is that when we walked it, and as a team, we walked every step of this to just gain an understanding of, is this the right place the trail? And if not, should we move or realign the trail in certain areas? This was an area that did get realigned onto the sanitary easement because it naturally lent itself to the trail, whereas other ways to get through this wooded area were more challenging. We also saw in this area that there's a lot of sinkhole activity. Plymouth and White Marsh have soil and rock type that lend itself to sinkholes. That's where our geotechnical engineers are going to come in. And if we do encounter a sinkhole, or if there's a sinkhole out there that we have seen, that will be mitigated from the standpoint of how to fill the sinkhole or deal with the sinkhole during construction. So then that takes us out to Flowertown Road. Along Flowertown Road, there is a shoulder, as you're aware, and we have a better rendering of that I'll show on the next slide. But we are following along the side of the road, making use of the shoulder. We're going to narrow the roadway to push the curb in, eliminate the shoulder, and that recaptured area will become the trail. As we come down to Colonial Drive, White Marsh Township has an independent project that they are in design with to signalize the intersection of Flowertown Road and Colonial Drive. When they add the traffic signal, which will allow for a left turn lane into Colonial Drive as part of the project, that provides us with the opportunity to cross Flowertown Road at the traffic signal in a crosswalk. So we're making use of that. And the White Marsh project will also construct about 600 to 700 feet of this trail as part of their project. That's what's shown in blue. So this is the highway materials quarry that's out there. And as you well know, along Flowertown Road, there is a steep berm that goes up to the top and then drops back down into the quarry area. As we restart our construction shown in green, we will be skirting along the bottom of that berm. We won't be cutting into it massively, such that we would need major retaining walls. In certain areas through here, we do think that there may be a little low wall, call it a landscape wall along the back, just to make sure that we're not cutting into the berm too heavily. This is the area looking back from Woodbine towards the railroad where we're coming out to Flowertown Road. And this is the existing condition that shows the shoulder that's striped out in the white gores. And then the curb, the grass buffer, the 4-foot sidewalk, and then the fence lines. This would be the after picture where the curb has been pushed in. So we still have the 2 lanes and have adequate room, but we've made use of that shoulder. Still have our buffer here with the asphalt trail, and this is the existing fence line. The goal of this is to not have permanent impacts that affect or push back that fence line. This photo is from Colonial Drive looking back towards Wildflower. This is really one of the most constrained areas for the trail because of the trail side location and the slope of the grass in this area. So this is a really sensitive part of the project that we're looking at in design. But again, the design will include placing the trail in the area of the sidewalk and widening it to be standard. So we're back now on Flowertown Road and coming to Joshua Road. There were a few different alternatives through the feasibility studies. At the time, the traffic signal at Colonial Drive wasn't known about, so the trail was coming down on the other side of the road. Now that we're coming towards Joshua on the north side of the road, it really provides a lot more flexibility from the standpoint of not having to cross the intersection. So this alignment goes behind the existing ADA ramp system and the controller cabinet that's out there that runs the traffic signal. This just runs behind it with little stub connections into the ADA ramp area. So anybody, you can see the crosswalks along here. Anybody can access the trail by crossing the traffic signal through the crosswalks and then coming onto the trail off the back of this northwest corner. From there, we go up Joshua Road to a point where shown in blue is the adjacent section that will be under construction that Bill mentioned, the Erdenheim Farm section. This does have a proposed trailhead parking lot that is part of that project. So that's where we would cross, and through coordination with PennDOT during the feasibility study, this would be a proposed traffic signal located here to cross safely into the Erdenheim Farm section. This is a picture from that northwest corner ADA ramp. Our trail would be behind it here and we would connect to it. And then the trail would run along the tree line area where it would then get to the crest of the hill and cross over to the Erdenheim Farm section. So as part of our preliminary engineering, we are required to get environmental clearance through the NEPA process. As such, we're reviewing and analyzing the impacts to natural resources, community resources, and cultural resources. Right now, we are in the process of our Section 106 consultation, and that is the above ground historic resources and or below ground resources. One of the components of that is what's called the consulting parties coordination. So as we get concurrence from PennDOT in regards to who will be a part of the consulting parties, we'll be reaching out to different organizations and stakeholders like the HARB to really get some good coordination through our environmental process. This is pursuing what's called a categorical exclusion evaluation. There are different levels. The different levels just mean who has to review and approve it, whether it stays at the PennDOT district level or goes up to their central office, or you can even go up to the Federal Highway Administration. Project schedule. So we're in preliminary engineering right now, and we expect to be through the end of this year. Then we would get into final design, but the things that we need to get out of preliminary engineering are the environmental clearance from our categorical exclusion. On the design end, we need to have a safety review and design field view. That the safety review is looking at all the different safety components of this project and analyzing it from a before and an after condition. It also looks at all the design criteria and makes sure that you're meeting the standards. If you don't meet the standards, you have to justify that to PennDOT. We anticipate that we're meeting all of the standards that we need for the trail and the structure, and to continue our public and stakeholder involvement that will be ongoing through preliminary engineering and absolutely into and through final design. The schedule is such that we believe final design will be approximately 2 years. One of the things that really dictates how long final design goes is the acquisition of right-of-way. As I mentioned, it's following the PennDOT process, and it's very linear and very scripted. So that really is usually one of the things that defines the project schedule. But that 24-month period would get us to construction towards the end of 2028 and really heavily in 2029. At this point, we haven't done a formal construction schedule, but we would anticipate that a project of this size would be between 18 months to 2 years of construction in various stages as you move along the trail. That is the end of the presentation. I went long and I apologize for that. Thank you for hanging in. But at this point, Mike, I think we're ready to get into the Q&A component.
Thank you, Bill and Jack. Now we have Andy Sanborn from the project team here, who is going to go through the Q&A comments and questions that have been posted in order of appearance. And Bill and Jack, as they mentioned, have support from other members of the county and design team to support them in responding to comments and questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andy and ask him to read the first question or comment.
All right, Mike. Give me 1 second here. The first question is, what infrastructure is envisioned to ensure drivers are focused on the driveway when turning in rather than just the oncoming traffic? This is especially problematic when cars are making a left turn to the driveway.
What infrastructure is envisioned to ensure drivers are focused on the driveway when turning in rather than just the oncoming traffic? Is this the driveway at Chemical Road for the Meeting House Business Center? I guess would be just the question. And if that's the case, then as part of our safety review, we are looking at the different components of the traffic signal. Narrowing the entrance has a traffic calming component to it, because right now the right turn is such that you can do it with a good amount of speed. So when you bring down the traffic speeds, you focus the driver, and that would be a component of that. We would also make sure that any crosswalks and ADA ramps are highly visible, so that any person that is wanting to access the trail and using the crosswalk system, that they are readily apparent from a sight perspective between the trail user and the driver. That's a very big consideration that PennDOT always is looking for when they're reviewing these trail projects. Hopefully that answered the question, if that is the driveway that you were referencing.
We have not received any additional comment on that, so we'll have to go with that for now. The next question is, how will the public be prevented from parking in residential areas, specifically the cul-de-sac at the end of Marple Lane, which the trail will abut?
Okay, Andy, we did actually get a new post from Robert Ryan, if we want to just stick with that so we can hopefully put that first item to bed. That's to clarify my question, the trail along Allenwood Road can be a bit problematic since cars are rarely looking into the driveway as the bikes cross the many driveways. Thank you for the clarification. Ellen?
And Jack, my suspicion is that what Robert Ryan is talking about is the left turn from Butler into the Meeting House Business Park, and that in that location, or into Danella, perhaps.
Yes, well,
I think better into Danella rather, in the trail crossing.
yeah, and the Allenwood area is part of the existing trail area, and I think maybe you're going from experience of what you've been seeing with the existing trail as well, and that is absolutely the reason that we are going over Germantown Pike and over the creek, so that we limit the amount of driveway crossings and roadway crossings. PennDOT agreed with that through the feasibility study, that there is too much vehicular activity going on Germantown Pike and Chemical Road, so you should be going over. So the majority of the trail users will be up on the bridge. When we do get to other driveways, that's where we are putting the high visibility crosswalks in, things of that nature. At the rapid flat, that's why we're putting in the rapid flashing beacon, to draw attention to the fact and to drivers that a trail user is crossing. And really, the new traffic signal at Colonial Drive also offers a lot of ability to reduce the amount of driveway crossings or roadway crossings that don't have some type of signal control associated with them. So for this 1.8 mile section, the number of driveways has been reduced. That's really the key to all of this. Sorry, Andy. So
Oh, no problem at all.
the next question from
Do
Andrew.
you want me to go
Grace.
back to that question that I had started?
Could you please?
How will the public be prevented from parking in residential areas, specifically the cul-de-sac at the end of Marple Lane, which the trail abuts?
That's a good question, and we will coordinate with the townships to make sure that that is raised as a concern of the public. It's a public road, so you can't restrict traffic unless the townships were to enact an ordinance to restrict parking. But anything done along those lines would need to be coordinated with the near neighbors in the residential areas. So in response, what I would say is it's a very good comment that we will bring forth to the townships and coordinate as we move forward.
Jack, let me also add that that's a really good question, and it's one that we commonly receive, and it's a legitimate one from people who are living near a trail, prospective or existing. One thing that we do to try and mitigate that is provide trailhead parking, like Jack described, off of Butler Pike. And we also have the trailhead parking lot up at Joshua Road, which memory serves me, will hold about 40 or 41 cars. Those are meant to provide those access points to our trails so that we mitigate the possibility of people parking in residential areas to access the trail. And we found them to be very successful and very popular and used, so that they do work. But that's what we try and do from a design standpoint to help mitigate that risk.
We did have an additional comment about that question from the original questioner, that it is a private road.
Okay. We move on to Stephen Kaufman's question.
Yep. From Seidel Zove, not Stephen. I could not change the name. How many parking spaces will be available at the Halb trailhead? And can you be more specific about the location of the trail emerging from the parking lot through Halb to the 10 acres of White Marsh owned land? The rear of the Halb property is pockmarked with sinkholes, often water-filled. And there is a swale that carries stormwater runoff from Halb to the adjacent Seventh-day Adventist Church property, where the water is collected underground.
Thank you. I think I just passed it. So right now, this is showing approximately 10 parking spaces. Whether it gets extended and maybe it gets more 10 to 15, but it's in the 10 to 15 space range. There hasn't been a final determination on the exact number, but that's around what it generally would be in that range. Coming through the Hall property and into the wooded area, we are looking at the sinkholes, but we also have some wetlands back there as a result of the stormwater that's coming down from the neighborhoods and through the woods. So we are avoiding wetlands through this area to get up to that sanitary easement. And yes, we did see the sinkholes that you're talking about in that area. We actually surveyed ones that were opened up so that we know where they are, and we'll continue to monitor that through preliminary and engineering and final design. From a stormwater perspective, a big component of our permitting process is going to be how are you dealing with the water that is coming down and coming into your site, so to speak. We need to collect that and manage it. So through this area, we will be looking at swales and how to carry stormwater and or different best management practice type of stormwater features that we don't want to promote infiltration because of the sinkholes, but we do want to do different things, and there are different things that you can do to manage the stormwater accordingly.
Are you ready for another question, Jack?
Yes, please.
Will the traffic signals be designed, redesigned to allow them to be triggered by cyclists without having to get off the trail? For example, signals along Chemical Road.
That's a good question. I don't foresee that there would be bike signals, and I just want to clarify what that is. So at certain signals, you actually have a traffic signal head that shows a green, yellow, and red with a bike signal on it. I wouldn't see that that would happen here, but we would want to have detection and actuation of the signal equipment such that traditionally you do push buttons. Does it make sense instead to do a video detection? They especially do that at rapid flashing beacon locations for mid-block crossings. They'll have video detection on the ADA ramps at the landings, so you're automatically detected. That is something that will be coordinated through PennDOT and the townships for a couple different reasons. PennDOT issues permits for every traffic signal device, whether it be a traffic signal or a rapid flashing beacon. The townships own and maintain the traffic signals. So whatever equipment you put in will ultimately be maintained by the municipality. So we want to make sure that we balance the needs of all three, the PennDOT permit, the ownership and maintenance by the municipality, and what's the best detection method for trail users.
Next question.
Yes, please.
This is more along the Hall parcel from Sadell Zove. The Halb parcel, now owned by White Marsh Township, had been part of the Corson-Malsby parcel. Corson, now a mere 10.5 acres, once consisted of 130 acres. Early subdivision occurred in 1838. Corson is on the National Register. Old maps note the presence of lime quarries and a railroad spur line that appears to have reached into Halb. Lots of historic resources here.
Duly noted, and Ellen has been keeping us apprised of especially these types of situations. We also received, I believe, from you, Sidel, the pictures of the lime kilns scattered throughout the area. So that is a component of the Section 106 analysis that is being done by the environmental team. Specifically, the firm is CHRS and Ken Basilick, who has a very good working knowledge of this area and has done quite a bit of work. So we're incorporating all of that into our environmental clearance phase. Thank you for that information. And I'm sure we're going to be talking to you more about the different components of the Section 106.
Okay, the next question is, are the paths going to be lit, I think literally, behind the houses in the Friends Lane area? And can we request the lights do not face the homes?
It is not anticipated that this will be a lit trail.
Yeah, and Jack, let me also add, in response to that question, county trails are open dawn to dusk, and we currently do not light them for that reason and don't have any plans to.
Next question. It's also from Seidel Zove. The Army Corps of Engineers previously found dragonfly nymphs and bullfrog tadpoles in the water-filled depressions, each of which require more than 1 year of consistent water for the metamorphosis. Habitat protection and restoration should be a priority.
As part of our environmental clearance, we're doing a few different things to look at the habitat. Number one, we're doing what's called a PNDI, which is for threatened and endangered species. So that is a component of this. I don't believe that these are on that, but I just wanted to mention it. The Indiana bat is the big one that is being dealt with on all projects within the region. In regards to habitat protection, we do have AD Marble on our team. They are evaluating the natural resources component of this. So we will make sure that they are aware of this. I'm sure they are. They've done multiple field walks, and we'll see what they indicate in regards to the habitat protection and restoration.
And the last remaining question at this time, the Friends Lane entrance is a swale. How will rainwater be mitigated, especially as it touches the houses next to the entrance?
Yes, we know that it's the swale there. The intent would be that we would, the first priority would be to maintain the swale and do the trail next to it. Because the connections are connections, the width of the trail doesn't need to be 10 to 12 feet. And for those sections, we would likely do a more narrow section of trail width through there. So the intent would be to have both the swale and the trail next to each other in that area of Friends Lane.
And that would be it for now.
Thank you, Andy. It is 7:02 right now. If there are no other comments and questions, we'll move on to wrap it up. And as I mentioned earlier, my email address was posted in the patch, and it was in the invitation that was mailed out and emailed to all parties. It's also posted on the social media websites for the county, White Marsh Township and Plymouth Township. So if you just reach out to us via email, if you have subsequent comments and questions, we'll incorporate those comments in the project record. And we will be posting this recorded presentation on the county website, social media links in the near future. So if there are no other comments or questions, we thank you all for joining us this evening. And again, the ongoing stakeholder coordination is going to be going through preliminary engineering and final design. I believe there's a new post here. Let's see. So we have a few more, Andy, tacked on there at the end. Do you mind just coordinating those as well?
Yep. Hold on for 1 second. There's one, will there be access to the slide deck?
Yes, I think we can work with the county and provide that as well.
Yeah, we can post that on our website on the projects page, on the Planning Commission website.
And the last question, it's just a blank question.
Okay. Again, if there are no other comments or questions, we thank you for attending this evening and appreciate your interest in this important project. And we'll be working with the stakeholders and communities as we move forward in final design. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.